Yeah.
So green.
Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. Well, that was quick. Hi, I'm Nancy Proyact. I'm moderating tonight's forum. I am a mother of 2 children who graduated from Cornwall. I've had the pleasure of moderating 4 or 5 of these forums over the years, which have been graciously hosted by the Cornwall PTO Trust. David is live streaming us, so we're live. And I guess the candidates can watch after the forum itself. Tonight's questions come from the community. The PTO's collected questions from the public, and then they give them to me to organize. We don't have time to answer all the questions, or to ask all the questions that have been sent to us. Those that don't get addressed tonight will be given to the candidates to answer in writing if they so choose. I'll start asking questions to each candidate in alphabetical order, starting with Jim, and rotate accordingly, so at some point each of you will go first and each of you will go last. I've been doing this, as I said, for 4 or 5 years, and I always forget to rotate. So if I do that, stop me and I will fix it. The audience, I'm going to ask the audience to hold any applause until the end of the entire forum, at which point each candidate will be asked to provide a closing statement as well as an introduction. Candidates will have 2 minutes for an introduction and closing, and 1 minute to answer each question. We have a timer in the front of the room. Will you just raise the timers? We ask that you follow their instructions. They're going to give you a 30-second mark, and then a time's up, and then they're going to ring a bell if you go over that. So I really ask you to follow their guidance and cede the floor when your time is up. So we have 4 candidates. We have Jim Cregan, we have Tiffany Galliano, Eleonora Fazio Panzanaro, and Pete Violetti. We have 3 open seats. And you know what? I don't know the day of the election. When? May 21st, so be sure to vote. Okay, so we're going to ask you, Jim, to start by introducing yourself and provide us with a brief overview of your interest in the school board and why you believe you'd be returned as an effective board member. And as I said, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. So Jim, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you to the other candidates. I certainly appreciate everybody who's willing to commit their time to the Board of Ed. It is certainly a serious time commitment, but it's an important job. And that's why I'm asking the voters to vote me in for another term. it's an important job, and I feel like I've done very well in my first term here. For those that don't know me, I grew up in town. I'm a graduate of Cornwall Schools, left to go to college, came back in my early 30s after having my own family, now have 4 children, and my wife and I are raising them here in the village. And I'm a community volunteer, coach Little League, youth football. I'm on the board of a local diaper bank in Newburgh. In my first 3 years on the board here, I won't go into great detail because we'll get into this later, but we've passed a capital bond bringing $23 million of needed capital improvements to all 5 of our district schools. We've passed 3 budgets with an average tax increase of under 1% for 3 years, while adding needed positions, instructional and non-instructional. We've instituted a new UPK program here in the district. So really a lot of good things we've done as a board. I'm one of 9, so I can't take credit for all of them, but certainly I was a part of that. Also this year I was proud to serve as the vice president of the board, and I was voted to that position unanimously by my other board members. So I have the respect of the other board members, and hope to earn another term and earn your respect in your vote next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Tiffany Galliano. My husband, James, and I, many people know him as Jimmy, live in the village, and we have a blended family of 5 children, 4 of whom are Cornwall Central High School graduates, and 1 current CCMS 8th grader. We also have a son-in-law who's a CCHS graduate. All of our kids have been involved in sports, arts, clubs, and really taken advantage of all of this wonderful district has to offer. We are also the proud parents of 2 New York State certified teachers. Personally, I'm an attorney. I'm a senior administrator in higher education and an adjunct professor for more than 10 years. Prior to this, I worked in government. I'm a pretty committed community member, serving more than 10 years on the board for Girls on the Run Hudson Valley, and volunteering there. I'm also on the advisory board for the Food Bank of the Hudson Valley, the chair of the Cornwall Youth Committee, which maybe some of you are familiar with the Cornwall Color Bash or the junior ball drop that we did this year. We're going to do that again next year, so we hope to see you all there. Also a past coach for Cornwall girls basketball, Newburgh Armory Unity Center, and volunteered for Little League and was a class parent at COH for 5 years. I have a lot of experience in large budgets, union negotiations, CSCA, contracts, very familiar with FERPA, and just so you know, students are my #1 priority. I'm looking to be a bridge to communication with educators, and my experience with strategic planning and negotiation should certainly help in this next year with contract negotiations coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Eleonora?
Hello, my name is Eleonora.
Oh, just press the green, yeah, there you go. The push, sorry.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Eleonora Fazio Panzanero. For those of you who don't know who I was a teacher here in Cornwall for 24 years. I've been teaching for 35 years. I spent 11 years teaching in Westchester County, where I lived prior to moving to Orange County here. Prior to that, I was also an accountant. I have 4 children, all of which who graduated from the Cornwall Central School District. They all were involved in sports and arts and all of the fun things that we have to offer here. I also was very involved in the community, coaching their Little League and basketball, and I thought they were going to name a bench after me in the gymnasium because I was sitting on it so much. But so that's my background with that. I have been in this district very long. I love my students. I'm running because I felt that being in the classroom, I advocated for my students as well as advocating for the community members as a community member myself. And I tried to think of how can I continue this without being in the classroom any further. So the best case scenario is to be involved in the board and be there to help make the decisions that would enhance their education, and as well as looking out for the community. I'd like to work as a liaison between the district as well as the community.
Thank you. Peter?
Hi, I'm Pete Violetti. I'm a recently retired veteran of the New York City Fire Department, and I feel it's taught me a lot about working together with people and responsibility and communication, working with others, and it feels good to serve the community and help others. I was in one of the busiest companies in all the job, and just going out that door, you're out to do good, and it's no different here. I just want to do the greatest amount of good for the most families and kids. My wife's a teacher. She's been teaching for over 27 years. She's very good at it. I'm proud of her accomplishments, and with that being said, we have 3 of our own kids in Cornwall, one in the middle school here in 7th grade. I have a freshman, my son, and my daughter is a senior in the high school. So we've been through a lot of the programs, done the drama, the modified sports, softball, soccer, baseball, and we love it, and we're thankful for these great programs. I believe in transparency, accountability, and most of all, integrity. If people don't trust you or feel that you're in this to do what's right, then you don't really have much of a backbone to stand on. So I'm just all about doing what's right and for the students and the families. And we just need to make this an all-inclusive environment for all our students, especially in special education. I feel it's lacking here, and it's an area that needs support.
Peter, we'll get into more detail in a little bit, so
Okay.
we'll cut you off there, but we'll jump right into questions. Tiffany, you're going to start now.
Okay.
What do you think is the most positive thing about Cornwall schools, and how will you work to make that stronger? And
So-
again, you have 1 minute.
Okay. I think the educators are the most positive experience that I've personally witnessed with my children. My current 8th grader has had an amazing experience with all of her teachers and staff. I would like to work to bridge what I see as a gap between the communication with the educators and staff and the board. Not for anybody's fault, but I would like to help improve upon that. I would like for the teachers and the educators to be heard, because they are the boots on the ground with our children, and they're the ones that can tell us exactly what's happening with our kids. So that's what I see as the most valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. Eleanor?
I have to agree that not only the teachers, but all of the staff of the Cornwall Central School District are what's positive about this district. We have always had among the top 5 scores of Orange County. We have always excelled in moving our students through the academia and progressing them through their secondary education. So yes, our staff, our teachers are primarily what is causing this to happen. And so as a board member, I feel that it's our job to make sure that we continue to do so, and that our administrators are carrying through the processes that need to happen so that this can continue.
Thank you. Pete?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. What is the most positive thing about Cornwall schools, and how will you work to make that stronger?
The most positive, I think, is the community and the schools are very linked, and it's a great place to live. And just like Saturday, there was a fundraiser for 2 women that had breast cancer at the Little League, and just the outpouring of support, and this all stems from the schools. They all know each other from school, the boys and the kids, and it's just a great community. And the teachers, there's phenomenal teachers. I feel I'm very impressed by their knowledge and how well they do, and the scores here in the district. And the teachers will always have my back. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jim.
Thank you. This is one of those questions where it's hard to go last. Everybody said a lot of good answers. I'm going to repeat a lot of what I said 3 years ago, actually, with this answer. Obviously, our teachers and our staff are wonderful, and it's that link between the staff and the community. We have such a great school district because the community supports us both, obviously, financially as taxpayers and supporting budgets year in and year out. But they also are really involved. We have people coming in, we have class mothers, we have, anytime there's a volunteer, the drama programs, which are really outstanding, have a lot of volunteer work with them. So the community is really engaged and involved with our schools, really wants to see their kids do well, and sends in great kids ready to learn and ready to take in the information from the teachers and staff. And it's really just, it's a virtuous cycle where everybody works together as a community. And that's what makes this school and this district really great.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go a little negative, and we're going to ask what you think the most pressing problem is at Cornwall Central School District, and how would you work to solve it? And Eleanor, it's your turn to go first.
I will get that before the end of the night. I have the privilege of being on the inside of this issue. And as a teacher of the district for many years, I feel that the biggest issue is the lack of communication between sometimes the board and administration and the teachers and staff. And that has caused quite a bit of tension among the staff. And so I feel that as a board, we need to start listening. We need to start taking what is being said to heart and doing something about it.
Pete, you're next.
Okay, the most depressing issue, I would say special education in the district would fit that. I'm actively engaging in numerous support groups, and I hear people's sides of their disappointments and the lack of support, and just families that are upset at how this is being run. I don't know if it needs more money allocated to this area, but the taxpayers are basically the customers, and we have kids that have special needs and issues, and you would think like the school district as the business would want to satisfy the customer, but here it seems to be opposite. It's just about the business saving money and the customer is unhappy, and that hurts kids and families, and we need to fix this and do better.
I'm going to just cut you off now. We're going to go back to it. We'll get to it.
Sorry, I'm just passionate about it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Jim?
Thank you. I would say the most pressing issue is just long-range planning and communicating that with the community. We have a very good district, and sometimes it's actually more difficult to maintain excellence than it is to achieve excellence. It can be very easy to build a business and just build more locations, and then all of a sudden you have a location in every state, and you go, uh-oh, now what do we do to improve sales? You can't just add more and more and more. You actually need to improve your quality, improve your visibility. I think we've made a lot of strides with, as far as capital projects with long-term planning in my time on the board. Passing a bond is part of that, and a new capital reserve towards the next bond. And this year we have begun an initiative to do some long-term strategic planning for the district, and we're sending out some RFPs for that shortly. And I think that's really going to help steer the ship here for the long term. So I think that's the most pressing need, is to do long-range planning and communicate that with the community.
Okay, thank you. Tiffany?
I've already mentioned communication between educators and staff and administration and the board, so I'll move on to something else, which is also infrastructure and facilities and planning and the transparency of that planning. I think that really needs to be addressed. That plan needs to be made available to the public, to the taxpayer. I also find, and I don't want to say negative, but I also am not fond of our history with letting our educators and staff go without a contract. And I know next year will be a contract year, and I would really like to get that contract in place on time. And so those are the things that I'm looking at as things that we could work on.
Okay, great, thank you. Pete, you're going to start with this question, and you talked a little bit about this in your opening, but what is your guiding principle, and what values will you bring to the board, school board?
Guiding principle, it's a great question. I'm about, there's always what's doing what's right, and sometimes doing the right thing is the hardest thing, and you need to do it when no one's looking, and that's when it means the most. So I'll always be doing what's right for families. I'll always vouch to do my best, and integrity, character, they're pillars of a strong individual that will fight for people.
Okay, thank you. It is your turn, Jim.
Thank you. You know, I would say my guiding principle would be integrity and honesty, really making sure to just carry out my values in each and every act that I take in an elected position, to make sure that the public knows that they can put their trust in me, that what you see is what you get. As far as what do I bring to the board, just a level head and common sense, you know, just really able to work with my colleagues. A big part of sitting at the dais with 9 other people is not necessarily getting everything that you personally want. It's working towards a consensus, and how do we get 7, 8, or 9 members to agree on something. So just using some common sense and good communication skills to try and build consensus amongst the board to make right decisions for the district and the public.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Thank you. I said it in my opening, students are number one. That's my guiding principle for this purpose and this role and this job, is students come first. And to me, what that means is hiring the most qualified teachers, no matter what. It means delivering quality education, which I feel that we do, but we do that by hiring the most qualified teachers. That's one of the ways. Investing in our technology and in our resources so teachers have what they need so they can make that deliverable to our children. And to make informed and thoughtful decisions. And that doesn't mean that everybody's always going to get exactly what they want. That's not how compromise works. But to be open to compromise, open to listening, and at the same time not being afraid to give my voice and give my opinion and make those hard choices.
Thank you. Eleonora? Do you mind repeating? Sure. What is your guiding principle as a school board member, or as a school board candidate, and what values will you bring to this work?
So my guiding principles would be obviously honesty, integrity, and transparency for the community. What I think I will bring to the school board is the students have to come first, and so when making decisions, we have to put the students' needs ahead of everything else. And so there has to, as they've all said, and Jim, you were right, going last isn't always great because everyone has already said everything you wanted to say. I'm sorry, now I lost my train of thought. We have to put the students first. We have to compromise. We all have to work together. And so as a board member, I feel that not only the board needs to work together, but the board needs to work with the administrators, with the teachers, with the community, and because our ultimate goal is what is best for the students.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question, Jim, you'll start. And the question is, the district has recently adopted a DEI policy, diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. How will you support this work in the school district?
Thank you. Certainly a hot topic. I was honored to be tasked to be the chairman of the policy committee this year. So I actually worked very in depth with Mr. Dade and the members of our committee in drafting that policy. We talked about this at board meetings, but I think one thing that really stood out to our whole entire board and something we were really proud of is that we drafted a policy for Cornwall. We didn't just pull a stock policy from the School Board Association, the New York State School Board Association. We really tailored it to our district. And we have set up, started this year, a DEI committee, and that has showed, the community showed a lot of interest in that committee. I want to say 30, 40 plus members attended the meetings that committee had this year. I think the bottom line and the goal of any DEI efforts are to make sure that every student in our district is ready to learn, that they feel welcomed and they feel that they have a safe place to learn.
Thank you. Tiffany?
So I didn't have the benefit of participating in the writing of the policy. However, I have read it thoroughly, and I do appreciate all of the work that was done, the time, the effort that was put into it. I did watch the community forum. Everybody who wanted to have a voice had a voice. And I think that's really what DEI is about at its core, is for all people to be valued, to be appreciated and afforded the same opportunity as everyone else. So I'm in favor of the policy as written, and I look forward to supporting it.
Thank you. Eleanor?
I was thrilled when I saw that that was being done, and I'd like to thank our superintendent and the board for taking this initiative for the DEI. I feel that it is important that all students have representation, that all students are heard, that all students are treated fairly and equally. I feel as a board, it's going to be our responsibility to ensure that it is followed, that the information is sent out to the community, that the parents are informed of what is happening, that everyone is on board, and that the teachers, staff, anyone who has contact with students are trained and have the proper equipment, everything that they need in order to implement what is in our policy.
Thank you. Pete?
Yes, definitely hot topic right now, and it's great to see that the district is on this and working with it. And I think we kind of need to tie in also with the teachers, like training, like social, emotional training, train the staff how to pass along to make everyone feel welcome and included, and people that don't exactly check all the boxes or they have anxieties and things, that everyone feels included. And so this is a great step in the right direction, and I'm real happy about that. But another thing is, like, some people say to me, like, how do you quantitatively measure this, though, that it's happening? And I think that's might be the next step for that committee to maybe somehow we can quantitatively, like, measure that it's working, it's happening. So,
Okay.
but yeah, very good.
Thank you. Tiffany, please complete the following sentence. Children learn when? Children learn when?
I think children learn when they feel supported, when they are challenged, and when they're not always told that, oh yes, that's the right answer. No, challenge them, engage them, give them the right materials that they can learn and broaden their horizons. But I think, again, it boils down to support. If they're supported properly and engaged properly, that's how they learn.
Okay, thank you. Eleanor?
Children learn when they feel safe and supported, and that can only be done through a supportive teacher, through communication between the school and the home, getting the parents on board to support the initiatives that are occurring in the classroom, having administration supporting what the teachers are doing. Children learn when they feel safe. Children learn when they don't feel that it is wrong to make a mistake, that they are heard. It's okay to get something wrong. And when they feel safe in that environment, then the learning comes with that.
Thank you. Pete?
Yeah, being last on this one's tough, but yeah, I agree. Safe, feel nurtured, and just overall, kids do better when they're happy, when they come to school happy, feeling good about themselves, and they like the environment they're in, and the teachers are supportive, and they're flourishing, and they're learning, and so definitely want happy, safe kids.
Okay, thank you. And you're not last, Jim is last. So.
Oh, all right, sorry.
Or Jim.
Still having my youngest, who's 3, I'll tell you that children learn when they're awake, from the first breath in the morning to their eyes hit to their heads hit the pillow at night. They learn how you talk to your spouse. They learn what you eat for breakfast. They learn that dirty word you said when your favorite football team throws an interception. They're always learning. They're little sponges. But in the school district, I think Eleanor really put it well, when they're safe and supported. And that's where, our teachers really go above and beyond, is they're not up there. We have a visitation committee on the board, and when I've been in the schools, the teachers aren't up there just talking and not paying attention to, is that message received or not. They're really attuned to, is my class listening? Is my class learning? And they're working with those students that may be struggling to get them into an environment where they're ready to learn. So you've got to set that baseline, and that's where our instructional staff really does a great job. And it's a coordination with our parents too, to make them, send them to school ready and fed and ready to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Eleanor, a lot of what the district focuses on are academics, arts, and athletics. Imagine a situation where the board must cut the budget. What would you cut first and why?
Wow. Academics is out of the question. So you cannot cut academics. The children need to learn. They need supplies in order to learn. They need their technology and books. So that would be out of the question. Having children who are both in the arts and sports, that is a very difficult question, because every child flourishes in different venues. So you may not be an academic student, but you may be that wonderful quarterback or terrific softball player, or you might play the piano beautifully or paint. So where do we cut? We'd have to come up with a compromise where not everything is cut completely. We have to take into account those students who do well in other areas besides academics or sports or arts. Everyone has their own venue that where they are. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Pete?
First, I agree, you can't cut the academics. It prepares the students for life out of school, college, interpersonal skills. You can't cut that. So what I would do is let's see if we can fundraise. Let's try to save a program. In JV and varsity baseball, we raised $22,000 just out of the generosity of families. So if it's known that drama needs a certain amount of money, like people would come together and try and save something. If that falls through, you have to just equally just spread it between the academics or the drama. You hate to do it, but it would have to be equally spread out.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Thank you. It's a difficult question because nobody wants to be there, right? So I would say it starts before you have to make cuts, and it starts with long-range fiscal conservatism as you're passing budgets every year. And the board, as I've been on it, really dealt with an influx of federal funds from COVID relief, and we were very pointed in our questions to the administration, and the administration, to their credit, was of the same mind of saying, you know, hey, we can't just go and hire a bunch of people and know that we have money for 2 years and we'll have to lay them off. So you have to be very careful with your spending so you don't overhire and that you don't get in a position where you need to make cuts. Also, you know, to members of our community, New York State, the governor proposed a budget this year which gave us $300,000 less in state aid than we should have received by the formula for foundation aid. So next time you see your state senator or your state representative, tell them that they need to fully fund education in our schools, so that you want to work to avoid making cuts to begin with.
Okay, and Tiffany?
Thank you. I agree with Jim. I disagree that it should be an equal allocation to all. I deal with very large budgets in my in higher education, and also with grant funding, which potentially the next year could go away. I believe that there should be a top-down and bottom-up review of finances and a strategic resource allocation plan, so you see where you can make cuts strategically as well as planning for same. So not everybody needs the same amount of money. Maybe your travel budget, hypothetically, or is larger than it needs to be. Maybe there's so many different places that you can make cuts if you follow strategic resource allocation that you don't have to actually just say, okay, we're cutting out sports or we're cutting out arts. We can plan so we can have everything and offer everything to our students with keeping the taxpayer in mind and not, you know, raising everyone's taxes to an unrealistic expectation.
Thank you. Pete, I believe you're first on this next question. New York State has recently mandated the use of science of reading literacy curriculum in place of the previous whole language approach to literacy. What are your thoughts on this shift, and why do you feel that way?
Well, I think it's good because whole language is more like they're trying to just treat everyone kind of more the same. Like you have people coming from other states, other countries, and you're trying the same method on people that are from totally different backgrounds. It's not as successful as the science of reading. The science of reading, it's how we learn to read, and it clarifies instructions for the students, and it's the new way of teaching kids how to read, so I support it.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Thank you. I'm going to lead off by saying this is not my bailiwick, and this is an area when you've got to rely on your administrators to make these types of decisions. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the district changed right before I came on, maybe 3-4 years ago, changed our instructional, not necessarily our method, but changed to a different instructional program. I don't believe that we were in a whole language environment before that. So I think what's important is the way that you monitor that as a board, and we do that by annually reviewing New York State test scores as well as other academic metrics including in-house STAR exams and other exams that we give in-house. So working with the administration to review all of that data to make sure that it's having an effect. But as far as getting into the weeds on that, you gotta rely on the professionals, and that's where Megan or Jenny would come in and make those changes as necessary.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Could I just ask you to repeat the question?
Sure. New York State has recently mandated the use of signs of reading literacy curriculum in place of the previous whole language approach to literacy. What are your thoughts on this shift and why?
Certainly. Thank you, Nancy. I am certainly no expert. My daughter is a high school and middle school ELA teacher, so she probably is, but I am not. However, I have read about it. I did some research on it. I've read about a couple of charter schools, actually, in, I think it's Brooklyn, who were pioneers for this, and it's highly successful. Its research is showing that it's increasing writing and reading in our students. And again, I too would rely on our experts, and our experts are our educators. So that goes right back to that whole communicating with our educators, just to make sure that we can bridge that gap where we don't have the expertise and they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Eleonora?
As Jim stated, we have not used whole language for quite some time. I think whole language approach to reading was done when I first started teaching 35 years ago. I haven't seen it in quite some time. The approach that you are speaking of, we've implemented for years, and so it is a more, it's a holistic approach. However, the students are getting the phonetics, the students are getting the chunking of word, they're understanding the process of reading and making them lifelong readers. So yes, I am in full support of this program, and I know many teachers who are already using it in the schools and are finding a great deal of success with it.
Okay, thank you. Jim, we're going to talk about preschool a little bit. From what I understand, students wishing to participate in the Cornwall School District's pre-K program have been selected using a lottery system. What are your thoughts regarding increasing the number of students participating in the program over the next 2 to 3 years? And would you prefer to see the program located in one place or spread throughout the community?
Yeah, so I'll start by answering that by saying we have, in my time on the board, there was no universal pre-K when I came on. We started with 60 seats, then we went up to 80. This year, the budget has in for, I think, 98 seats. It's not quite 100 if the voters do approve the budget next Tuesday. So I am in favor of it. I think we've taken a cautious approach as a board, as we do in most things, where we've crawled before we walked and walked before we run. Number one, we simply don't have the space to do it in-house. We're nearly busting as the seams as it is. Number two, it's actually a little bit cheaper to do it with external providers at this point than it is to hire full-time staff, which doesn't mean we won't go that direction in the future, but that's where we are now. The reason that we've had to dip our toes into the water, one, it's another area where New York State will tell you, hey, we're funding it. They give you about $5,500 a seat, where a seat here in an external provider costs around $8,000. So it's not fully funded. And also, we need to be mindful of private providers who've served our community for decades. We don't want to put them out of business as well.
Okay, thank you. Tiffany?
Yes, New York State seems to be wonderful at unfunded mandates. UPK is an absolutely essential program. It did not exist when my current 8th grader was in pre-K, and I have to tell you, as a working mother, I felt like I was spending half of my paycheck just to pay for pre-K. It's absolutely necessary. My understanding from watching all of the board meetings, it's a good time, you should try it, is that the seats have increased for this year. If you vote yes for the budget, we will have more UPK seats, and then perhaps even another kindergarten teacher to support all those UPK seats for the following year. So the lottery, it is necessary. If we can't fit everyone, unfortunately, the goal ultimately would be to fit everyone, right? When there's a need and be able to meet that need. But as a fiduciary, we need to be mindful that we can only fit so many students.
I cannot stress the importance of UPK as an educator. The difference in the students who have a preschool experience as opposed to those who come to us without a preschool experience is tremendous. I'm thrilled that we are adding some seats, so please vote yes on Tuesday for the budget so that we have some more seats for our preschoolers. I would love to see it in-house. I know space is an issue, so I'd love to see what happens in the next few years and how we handle that. The lottery system has always been a thorn in my side. I know it's necessary, but I feel strongly that we have families who can send their children to preschool, and then we have families who cannot because they cannot afford it, and sometimes those are not the students who are getting into that preschool program. And so we have children coming to us in kindergarten who've not had preschool.
Thank you. That was it, right? You were the last. Pete, did you
I gotta go.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, I knew this would happen. Go ahead.
See, this is where the lottery system, we're all about the DEI, the inclusivity. You're not including everybody when you have the lottery system. And I'm on the facilities committee, and we've discussed what it would cost the taxpayer roughly a month to have every kid in the UPK. I think it was 60, 70, 80 cents a month per person. So there is a way to make sure there's no lottery, everyone is included. All three of my kids went to preschool, Hudson Highlands Nature School. They loved it, they flourished. I still have the pictures on the wall and look at it and just remember that time as being a great time. And we have to make this happen for everyone. Include everyone in the UPK.
Thank you. Tiffany, some school boards across the country have become active in determining curriculum for students. Who do you believe should be setting curriculum for our students?
Well, Nancy, I would say that the experts, the educators, should always play the largest role in setting our curriculum. However, there should be, in my opinion, we have a visiting committee. I'm sorry if I'm calling it the wrong name. And it's wonderful, but I've heard some feedback from some educators that say, you know, when the visitation committee comes and when it's our time to speak with them, we're teaching, we're instructing, so we don't have the opportunity to speak with the board. So again, it goes back to communication. If we had a curriculum committee that could have an educator or two on it, that could have administration, that could have a couple board members, I think that that would go a long way to satisfying parents, and you wouldn't just have parents coming once they hear about something at the end and coming up to the board meeting at the microphone, being upset about something or feeling like there wasn't transparency. If we could create that curriculum committee and work together on it, relying on our experts.
Thank you. Eleanor?
Thank you, Nancy. I would love to say that the board would have the decision or that the teachers have the decision, but ultimately it's the state that sets the curriculum. So the state sets the standards, determines what we will be teaching. However, it should be up to the educators to determine how their students best learn that standard and teach it accordingly to their classes. Having a board, although we could be involved in it, certainly, but having the board make that determination without the expertise that the teachers would have, or the expertise about the students that are sitting in front of them and how they learn, that would not work. So it has to go to the educators, the administrators. Everyone has to discuss, but ultimately it's the teachers that have to determine how that curriculum is taught and what they are teaching in order to meet the standards that are set forth by the state.
Thank you. Pete?
Can you repeat the question exactly?
Yes, some school boards across the country have become active in determining curriculum for students. Who do you believe should be setting curriculum for our students?
I believe it's the teachers. They're the experts. I'm not going to come up here and pretend I'm a teacher and leave it up to them. They know what they're doing, and they're the experts on it. And I'd like to see classes that are kind of like more life skills, like a financial class where you learn how to balance a checkbook. You learn about stocks, bonds, savings accounts, credit cards, just basic life things like that. But this is the teacher's realm, and obviously would have to get approved by the administration. But I leave it up to the teaching staff.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you. Yeah, as Eleanor said, you know, a lot of things are state mandated, so you have to do those no matter what. As a board, the board certainly shouldn't be introducing a curriculum and leading that charge. That would come from the assistant superintendent for education. Anytime that there's going to be a curriculum change, they're going to form a committee. They're going to involve building administrators and educators, department chairs, and others. So there's a process that's going to be followed there. I haven't remembered all of the board policies by heart yet, but I do believe that there is a policy that there is a vote on a board on some level of curriculum change. So sort of a final stamp of approval, which is, you know, the board's role on a lot of important issues is to just be a final check to make sure that what the district is doing represents what the community wants, and that's the role of the board member, is to be that voice of the community. But certainly the board should not be coming from top down and saying, hey, we should introduce this new curriculum. That's not the way it should work.
Thank you. The next question is for you, Eleanor, to start. Do you think our district should have a dedicated gifted and talented program?
So when I first started working here in Cornwall, we did have a gifted and talented program. My daughter, my oldest, participated in it. It was a wonderful program. Do I think we should continue that? Yes, I do. I feel that we have multifaceted students, some who require additional help, some who require enrichment. We cannot ignore either one. So we need to support our special ed students, but we also need to support those students who are beyond where our educational system is going, and we need to expand their learning. So is it through a gifted and talented program, or is it through changing our curriculum so that within the classroom we could differentiate for our students? That's something that the board should look into with the administration as well as the teachers.
Pete?
Yeah, I remember when my oldest daughter was in the middle school that there was like a kaleidoscope program, and these have existed. And like my colleague here said, like how special education needs support. I think the top end of the spectrum, that they should also have a gifted and talented program. Like there's colleges out there, accelerated programs in business where you can finish in 5 years and be out there with a master's degree, and we could target programs like that. And so yeah, I think we should definitely try and bring it back if at all possible.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you. There are a couple folks out in the audience who are on the board, I want to say in the 2014 timeline, give or take, when cuts had to be made to the budget, and that was one of the programs that they cut, and those folks would tell you that they'd love to see it back. I can't, who's going to say no, we don't want to see that? Of course we do. It always comes down to money. Sadly, those programs had to be cut. It would be great to bring them back. we've got a lot of other needs, and we have not yet been able to scratch that itch. A key thing that Eleanor said is differentiation, and from what I've seen, both with my kids' experience and being on the board, is a lot of times in the elementary classrooms, it's not a teacher lecturing to 22 students all doing the same thing. They're broken into 3 or 4 different groups. And through that, they're able to, provide some more challenging reading materials for those who need it and give a little more help to those who need it in different groups. So that's certainly one way to help bridge that gap from having a dedicated program.
Thank you. Tiffany?
So I believe we have an obligation to meet the student where they're at. So yes, gifted and talented, or whatever it would be called. I'm not certain if that name would stand up in 2024. Nonetheless, the program itself, my own child wasn't able to get into accelerated courses until the 7th grade. So yes, I would like there to be something. Jim previously mentioned external partners that we use for UPK. Perhaps that's something that we could look into for cost-saving measures. And I would also, as we say about meeting the student where they're at, I would also love to see co-teaching at the elementary level, so we can support those students with extra needs at that level as well, and not just resorting to special ed. And not that it's not wonderful and it's not necessary, but not every student needs that. Some students can thrive in a co-teach environment, which I believe is not available till the 5th grade.
Thank you. The next question, Pete, is can you discuss a time when you experienced a conflict with a colleague or coworker or peer, and how did you resolve that conflict?
This is a great question.
It's like an interview question, a real job.
Well,
at the end, you'll get a job.
When you're a fireman and you're working 24 hours with 10 other guys, and there's obviously going to be issues that arise. Everyone has different personalities, different ways they go about things. So you need to gauge how people are and their tendencies. And ultimately, if something does go awry and there is an issue, grown adults, you have to communicate. You have to talk it out. Why did you see it this way? That you feel that this is what you thought was right, and I'll tell you my side, and let's come to a compromise. And then once we come to that, let's just put this behind us and move forward. And so you just have to communicate with people, and that's how I feel.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll kind of revert to a previous answer. I said that a big part of the board is working towards consensus. And a lot of what 2 or 3 people here will realize as they gain a new seat on the board is that you'll have a lot of ideas, and you'll come in and charging, and you want to think that you can accomplish everything, and it turns out that you're 1 voice out of 9. And that can be frustrating, but it's also a built-in part of the system, in that change is supposed to be slow. You're supposed to be turning an oil tanker and not turning a speedboat, right? You're supposed to take things slow and do them deliberately. So learning how to work with your other board members and to drive consensus and to be a part of consensus is a really important job, really important part of being a board member, and a really important part of how a board functions to serve the community.
Thank you. Tiffany?
So my husband is a leadership expert of sorts and has given many, many speeches and keynotes about it. And one of the first things he taught me was it's hard to hate up close. Meaning, when you have a face-to-face conversation with another person, you will usually find out that you're not that far apart, that you can find common ground. It goes back to consensus and compromise, like Jim was mentioning. Active listening. Take a breath, listen to the other person, and hear what they have to say. Find that common ground. As the secretary to the Board of Trustees and my current job, an advisor to several other boards, I understand how boards work and what needs to be done in order to accomplish and achieve a goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Eleonora.
Thank you. As I look out into the audience, there are many of my former colleagues sitting out there. And when you work with people, you are going to disagree on things. And as they know, we have had disagreements. But the key is active listening. You must listen to each other, and you need to feel heard. Now, conflict doesn't just occur adult to adult. As a teacher, you have conflict in your classroom. You and a student may not see eye to eye. Again, the student needs to feel heard. I need to feel heard. There has to be a middle ground where you can both come to a consensus. It's not about right or wrong. It's about coming to a decision that you're both comfortable with.
Thank you. Jim, what should the district do to recruit and retain the next generation of diverse and talented staff, both teachers and other staff members?
So to retain diverse and talented staff, I think it really starts with where we're at in terms of being an excellent district, being a well-regarded district. Certainly we have, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. When we have a job application, we typically get hundreds of applicants for teaching roles and other roles. People move into this district. We've seen a surge of enrollments the last 2 years for kindergarten over the summer. Before kindergarten, I might have a light kindergarten class this year. You get 20, 30 new enrollments over the summer. So it's a desirable school district because of the students that we turn out and the staff that we have and the community that we have. So it's important just to keep that train rolling. In terms of hiring diverse staff, I think that's always a goal, is you want to have diversity of experiences, diversity of opinions, and Mr. Dade has done a great job of starting some programs this year to recruit in different areas that we typically do to bring in a more diverse staff.
Thank you. Tiffany.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Dade has taken the initiative to recruit and hire a more diverse population. I commend that. It's sometimes as basic as where are you advertising? What language are you using in your job posting? Being mindful of all of these things. I also think it's really important we have a commitment to hire the highest quality educator and staff person that we can find. And again, it goes to relying on the experts. So if the department chair of math says this is the candidate that I want and this is the best person for the job, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be the person that gets my vote to get the job. I don't want to settle. I don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. Yes, we have a fiscal responsibility, but it's where we advertise, how we advertise, and selecting the very best.
Thank you. Eleonora?
When I was hired in this school district, it was one position, and there were 375 resumes that Melanie Robinson needed to go through. Fast forward to today, and there are 3 applicants for an E&L position that we haven't been able to fill. I feel that the issue we are having is that our contract is not competitive, that teachers are going to other districts. So in order to get a qualified, diverse staff, we must have a competitive contract to attract those qualified and diverse teachers that we keep talking about wanting to get into our district.
Thank you. Pete? No, please hold your applause to the end of the event. Please hold your applause until the end of the event.
This is, I'm really glad this question came up. As a civil servant, I went through 5 contracts with the FDNY, so I know about union bargaining, and all of this is public information, what the teachers here got, their contract. You can go on See Through New York and look it up. You could even see people who signed the documents in the negotiations. Cornwall took a 0% increase from July 1st, 21 to January 31st, 22, a zero raise, no compensation increase. Then 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%. The government measures inflation with the CPI index. It's running 3.56% year on year. This contract's not even keeping up with inflation. And we are going to have a crisis here, getting good teachers. And it's happening. Like she said, you only have 3 people when there used to be hundreds. And the last thing I want to say, though, the 0% increase, it's devastating to someone because every year these steps compound. So you're compounding off of
Pete,
zero.
I'm going to ask you to hold off on that and maybe add it to the end of another question. Thank you. Tiffany, according to the latest state survey, Cornwall's parental satisfaction rate with special education is below the state average, and it's not the first time. Why do you think this is, and what would you do to improve it?
Well, I touched upon this already. We have to meet all students where they are, not to sound completely redundant, but it's very important, and I truly believe that, you know, we have high AIS numbers, from what I'm understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But again, going back to that co-teach opportunity that I feel like we're missing. In elementary school, it helps, you know, whether you have an IEP, a 504, whatever your needs are, the needs of that student would be better served with a co-teach environment, in my humble opinion. Again, I'm not a teacher, I'm not an expert, but I listen and I research. And I think that would help a lot of our situations with special ed and our special ed teachers being overwhelmed.
Thank you. Eleonora?
Special education is an extremely important part of our school district, and sadly, we are shortchanging it because of the number of students that need to be serviced. For example, my classroom was always the inclusion classroom, which meant I had the regular ed students and the students with IEPs or 504. Your class size was still 27 students. So it was very difficult. Although we did it, you had to differentiate for each of the students in your class regardless of where they were. So what do we need to do? We need to have programs for these special education students. We need to support the teachers. We need to support the resource room teachers, the special education teachers, the regular education teachers. Everyone who is working with these students need to have the support of administration, need to have the financial support in order to have the proper supplies to do their job properly.
Thank you. Pete?
Along those lines, I feel that this area, maybe it's a money issue. This needs more funding to get the supports and get the staff the training on the social and emotional. And like I feel the numbers are even worse than that are advertised out there. You don't hear about the people that are denied the IEP or the 504. That's not even baked into the equation. So I don't know if the law firm that we have had here for 20 years is doing a service to our CSE committee members, but if I get elected, this is going to be an area that I'm going to dig deep on, and we're going to have to make it better. When I moved here in 2006, a person that was showing me around said that this is a great school district. if your kids play sports, check the boxes, but if you need supports, you might not want to move here. And that's devastating, and I find it sad.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you. Vitally important question, very challenging issue. The board, the district, the community, we all want to support every student that we have in our district. I would say that we have definitely, in my time on the board, made strides and improvements in this area. Early on in my service, we were settling lawsuits from folks that were suing the district, from years ago for not getting the proper treatment. We have made improvements in that area. We follow, all state mandates and guidelines, but there's always room to do better. As a board this year, we requested and received from the administration a presentation on this issue. We were given the ability to ask several questions, and those were answered, but there's still more work and more, as Pete said, more deep dive to be done to see how can we make this better and make every student in our district supported and ready to learn.
Thank you. I'm going to just stop for a minute. We're going to give you a minute to breathe, and I'm going to ask everybody to just take out your cell phone, look at it, and make sure it's on silent or do not disturb. Nobody's moving. Just look at your cell phone. You're looking at it already. Look at it and make sure that it's on do not disturb or silence, please. We're about more than halfway through, so it's great. Everybody did that? Okay, thank you. Eleanor, what is the best way to measure the success and failures of the school district?
Your students, 100% your students. If your students are successful, you have a successful school district. If your teachers are happy, you have a successful school district. If your staff is happy, your clerical, your custodial, everyone. Most importantly, however, are the students. If your students are succeeding, then you've done your job.
Thank you. Pete?
Repeat the question?
What is the best way to measure the success and failures of the school district?
I agree with Eleanor. The students, exactly how, when they graduate, what was their experience like? Do they feel they're ready for college, the real world? And also the families, too. How did the families feel the experience was, and were they happy with how their kids' education went and the grades they got, and do they feel that their child is prepared for the real world? And so, yeah, the students and the families, absolutely.
Thank you. Jim?
Yeah, simply put, it's the students, right? I mean, there's no other answer, is how you measure the success of the district. In that measurement, we are very successful. We graduate, 98, 99% of our students. The vast majority of those go on to colleges, some of them, very competitive colleges. We also have, contingent that goes on to military service, which we certainly applaud them for their service and their efforts. And we have a good contingent that's involved in the BOCES program and goes on to vocations. And it's great that we can serve all of those students. So, the motto of the district is striving for excellence every day. There's always room to be better, but the measure is the students, and are we preparing them for life when they leave our doors?
Thank you. Tiffany?
So my very opening statement, and I think a couple times since then, I mentioned that students come first. And this is where it does stink to be the last person, because you sound like you're repeating what other people said. But I will also go a step further and say, I promise to always make informed and thoughtful decisions. I said that to you once already. And that means being data informed, right? It also means looking at your measurables. So again, who is happy, who's not? What are our test scores? What are our graduation rates? They're all great, and striving for excellence every day. But part of that is looking at your deficiencies and where you can improve. So you just can't strive for excellence by status quo because that's the way we've done it, or we're going to continue to do it this way. We have to look where our deficiencies are and assess them and address them and try to improve them wherever we can.
Thank you. Peter, what do you believe are the core issues that a school board should be involved in addressing? What are the boundaries between a school board member's job and that of a superintendent and educators?
The school board is basically the bridge for the public and the students and the taxpayer concerns. We represent the people that vote for us, so it's our job to bring to the administration, the superintendent, the concerns of the public, of the students, the families. So the board is kind of like that bridge between administration and the students and families, and it's our role to support the families and keep our promises that we said we want to accomplish if you voted for me or anyone. So the board is kind of like the liaison.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you. There's three main areas that the board legally has responsibility over. That's to set policy. So the board approves and sets all the policies for the district. It's the administration's responsibility to carry those policies out. Number two is to approve a budget every year, which then is presented to the voters for ultimate approval. The voters are the ones who tell us our budget is okay, but to set that budget for voter approval. And then number three is to hire and fire the superintendent. So those are really the legal areas where we have purview. Certainly the most visible, day-to-day, year in, year out task that we do is set that budget. And that's, where it's very important, as Pete said, to be that bridge to the community and make sure that we're communicating with them what the priorities are that we're carrying out in our annual budget to, keep the school district rolling.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Thank you. Yes, the primary roles of the board legally are exactly what Jim stated that they are. And the budget, as the board being the fiduciary of the district, it's a tremendous responsibility. So if you look at that in a broader sense, we are the elected representatives of the community. So we do have the responsibility and the honor of being your voice. So you have the ultimate say when you vote for the budget, but guess what? If you vote no, there's a 3+ week turnaround where the administration and the board need to scramble and have Plan B. So ultimately, it rests on the shoulders of the board and administration, of course. And that goes for the policy portion of our responsibility as well. We are the voice of the community. We are your elected representatives to your board. And for my personal opinion, though maybe it's not our legal obligation, is to be that bridge to communication. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. As stated, we have three main legal obligations: the budget, policy, and the superintendent. But I feel as a board, we have the responsibility of being your voice. We are the ones who must be transparent with you and let you know what's happening. I feel our biggest job, however, is to make sure that the administration is instituting the policies that we are voting on. So it's not just about creating the policy, creating the budget, but it's also about making sure that it is being done properly, the funds are being allocated to where they're supposed to be going, and that the policies are being followed as stated.
Thank you. Jim, we talked a little bit about cutting the budget before. Now, this might be a little easier. If the school district had a financial windfall, what would be the top 3 programs that you would want to implement?
If we had a financial windfall, so I'm going to ask you first. Is this one-time money?
It's recurring. I knew you were going to ask that.
Is it one-time money or is it recurring?
It's never
right?
going away.
Because if it's one-time money, we're going to spend it on facilities. If it's recurring, we're going to hire new staff. So what areas of staff do we need to hire? I'd have to go and pull out my list. The staff that we're adding this year in the budget, our high school business teacher, an elementary educator to reduce class sizes in the early elementary level. I know that we need more staff in guidance. We certainly need more ENL staff, and that's a very difficult position to find, as Eleanor pointed out. So guidance, early intervention, ENL, I guess those would probably be the top 3 areas, but again, I would lean on the administration for that.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Wow, windfall. So after we got the unicorn, then I would, I've heard that we have some issues with our infrastructure and with our buildings that need some major improvements. Everything costs so much money, as we all know. We've talked about inflation. Our facilities also it would be a major draw for me. Also contract making Cornwall more competitive to get the best teachers that we can get, and also to increase the pay for our existing educators and staff. And then to bring those programs in, like the gifted and talented, or whatever we renamed it, and our special ed and co-teaching opportunities, and all of the UPK seats that we could possibly fill. I mean, we're talking about a windfall. We might as well go big.
Thank you. Eleonora?
Thank you. If we had a windfall, we have to take care of the buildings. We have many things that are falling apart. We had things that were in the capital project that we ran out of money to fix. The staff bathrooms at the middle school, which were in the capital project money, and they are not done. Student bathrooms were done. So certainly being able to fix all of the things that need to be fixed. We have a gym floor in one of the buildings that is, has a hole in it. So yes, facilities for sure would be a priority. Class size. We keep talking about, someone mentioned AIS. Yes, it's wonderful to have the AIS and the resource room and all of those programs, but if you make a class size smaller, the teachers can now pinpoint what needs to be done for their students. We have classes that, in the elementary school that have 30 students in it. So I believe that would be it. And then, yes, gifted and talented and special ed.
Thank you. Pete?
This is a fun question because you could really do a lot with a lot of money. And being on the facilities committee, we are bursting at the seams, our schools. We're within 5% of an increase in enrollment at being at max capacity. So I'd want to build another elementary school. We need storage so badly. The middle school cafeteria, a third of it is taken up with the lacrosse, the softball, the baseball bags. So definitely a lot of money into the facilities. And I don't know about your kids, but my daughter is carrying around in the middle school a 70-pound backpack. Like, it's incredible that they're not going to a locker and putting some of these books in, and they need a couple more minutes or whatever, or the lockers are too small. But when I was in high school, I used my locker. So we need to put lockers in these schools, and of course, teacher contract would be where I want a lot more money to go to, because they're the pillar of the district, and we need to retain them and get great talent to come here.
Thank you. So speaking of that, during the 24-25 school year, the school board will be negotiating with three of the district's bargaining units. As a member of the Board of Education, how will you ensure that fair settlements are reached before the expiration of these contracts on June 30th, 2025, including fair pay for all union members, including paraprofessionals, nurses, and teachers alike? Tiffany, that's you.
I actually love this question because I have significant experience in contract negotiation, CSEA, bargaining, non-bargaining. I also have tremendous experience in dispute resolution with unions. It has to be fair and balanced. So in other words, you have to work on it in a timely fashion. So it's not, okay, here's your proposal, now I'm gonna go sit on it for a month, and then I'm gonna come back to you with my proposal, and then you're gonna sit on it for another 3 weeks. And that's how we have gotten ourselves, one of the reasons, we have gotten ourselves into the situation where teachers, where educators and staff and the 3 unions have gone without contracts for some time. We make it a priority, right? Anything that we prioritize in life, we can accomplish. And I'm not trying to minimize it and make it sound like it happens like that. I understand that it doesn't, and there's many considerations, but I think that it can and should be done, and I certainly will advocate for it.
Thank you. Eleonora?
Thanks. So I was on the last negotiation committee when we negotiated the contract we have. We have 3 unions who are negotiating this year for a fair contract. My biggest point that I need to make as a board member, if I am elected, is that every single person who works for this school district is equally as important. There is no one more important than anyone else. So when we're negotiating contracts, the contracts should be negotiated fairly. When you're negotiating an administrative contract, it should be dealt the same way as when you negotiate a teacher contract, or the custodial staff, or the clerical. We need to make sure that our staff is being treated fairly and equally.
Thank you. Peter?
I just think that we're going to have a problem in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now getting high-quality teaching candidates to come here if we don't have a better starting salary. And 2% it's not terrible, but it's not great. But what was alarming to me in my research is the 0% for the 7 months. That when you retire, your last 3-year average, when you have your 30 years, is your final average salary is based on the best average of your last 3 years, up to 30. So those people that got out under this contract, they didn't get any retro pay or a bump in their numbers. So every month till the day they die, they're taking home less money than they should have. And we need to up it, this contract. And New York City is paying retention bonuses, $400 in '24, you get $700 in '25, $1,000 in 2026. Top paid teachers now in New York City, $150K
Peter.
for the first time. I'm just saying, we are going to lose teachers.
Okay.
We have to do better.
Thank you. Jim?
Teachers are a vital part of our school district. Teachers are who we entrust our children with every day to impart knowledge on them, not just book knowledge, not just learning, but, life lessons, right? Very valued asset to our community. I don't think anybody from the administration to the board to the teachers union is pleased with the way that the last negotiation happened. I'm not going to sit up here and rehash the past, other than to say, I don't think that any party is happy how that happened. I think there were some compounding or confounding factors. Certainly COVID was still an issue at that time, and people weren't able to meet face to face. That presented a lot of challenges. We have an administration now who has been here longer, has had time to build relationships, and I'm very confident that lessons have been learned by everybody, and that this contract negotiation will go much more smoothly than last time, and that everybody in the end will feel that it was a good process and come out feeling as valued as they are.
Thank you. Eleanor, Board of Education members are often confronted with complaints or concerns from parents and community members. How will you handle these?
Thank you. Well, this is a great question because as a teacher, we often have to deal with some complaints and concerns from our community and from our parents. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the years is listening. So when a parent or a community member in this instance would have a concern, we have to listen to their concern. We don't minimize what their concern is, even though it may seem something small that we are dealing with in comparison with, infrastructure. You have to listen. We have to listen to the community because we are representing the community. We are here as your voice. So it's very important to have these conversations, to allow yourself to be available for it as well. You can't close yourself off. In other words, door needs to be open. Please come tell me anything that you need to tell me, and hopefully we can address it at the Board of Ed meeting.
Thank you. Pete?
Well, I'm recently retired, and I have time to sit with people. I did a little video on my Facebook. If you want to DM me, call me, I'll come to your house. You can come to mine. I'll meet you at 2 Alice's, whatever you want to do. I love talking to people and hearing what their concerns are. And if you're elected, it's your job to hear these people's concerns. That's why they voted for you. So once I sit with someone, I enjoy people, and I'm going to get your concern, and we're going to bring it through the proper channels and make sure it's addressed and try and satisfy people's their needs and why they're coming to me. So, and I still stand by that. You can send me a DM after this meeting. I'll meet you tomorrow.
Thank you, Pete. Jim?
Thank you. So it's sort of a two-track answer. One is, if we're dealing with an individual student or an individual case, it's very important to let the parent or community member know, hey, this is out of my purview. You've got to go through the proper channels. You've got to start teacher to building administrator to central administration. You've got to work your way up that chain, right? It's very important to not be a board member and say, I'm going to come in and fix, this one student's problem. That's just not the role, and it's not the way it happens. When it comes to broader concerns, when it comes to facilities, when it comes to programs, when it comes to spending, that's where the board is the face of the community. It's a factual answer. You would bring that to the administration and have them provide that answer. If it's a broader question, it should be brought up in a board meeting and brought up in the public eye so the issue can be debated and discussed and a solution found for it, hopefully.
Thank you. Tiffany?
I'll agree, active listening. So you can't guide someone in the right direction if you don't know what their issue is. I'm a lawyer. I solve and resolve people's problems for a living. It's just one of the things that I do. I also understand FERPA, so as soon as you say that question, that's what pops up in my head, because some things you're not allowed to talk about if it's an individual, as Jim had mentioned. So guiding people to the right person that can help them and hearing the broader community concerns, they're two different issues, but I'm happy to listen.
Thank you. The last question is there a book, an article, a TV show, or a movie, something that has influenced your thinking about education? Are there lessons that you've drawn from it and would apply to education in the district? And I believe, Peter, that's you. Pete, that's you start.
I watch a lot of business, like news and CNBC, Bloomberg, and I just feel like we could have a lot of like skills with basic life, like I was saying before, like classes with where you learn how to balance a checking statement, or you can learn about the stock market, bonds, retirement accounts, and just a kid could learn how to open up a credit card and just start getting gas and build their credit as they're teenagers and they have their first jobs. And so I just like to see more life skill type classes, if possible, implemented, because it's valuable to know things like that.
Thank you. Jim?
I got to say, you got me with the curveball here. I wasn't prepared for this one. Ultimately, I've said it a few times before, and it's come across from other candidates up here. It's not just teaching the lesson, but it's making sure that the student is ready and receptive to learn that lesson and making sure that they're prepared to accept that information. So if we can go with an older movie, we'll go with Stand and Deliver. We'll go back to the 80s here, where he's teaching calculus to inner city youth in California, and just really sort of highlights that concept of how first you have to have that trust and that respect and that connection with your students, and that's where teachers are really magicians. To be able to do that and make that connection and make sure their children are ready to learn before they can start imparting, the lesson and the curriculum as it is.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Yes. So I normally quote like Seinfeld or The Office, and I don't feel like either of those are appropriate to answer this question. But I have read many books and sat in on many seminars and attended many conferences because prior to my current role in higher education, I was the dean of the School of Business. So I've read, the DEI books. In fact, one of my faculty wrote 2 of them that I read. The approach to education is, again, in my opinion, putting students first, supporting educators, supporting staff, and to the best of your ability, in a fiscally responsible way, providing as many resources as you possibly can.
Thank you. Eleanor?
Can I say one flew over the cuckoo's nest? No. It's been a long night. As an elementary teacher, of course, the first book that popped into my head was Thank You, Mr. Falker by Patricia Polacco. And it is an amazing story because we're talking about DEI and diversity and accepting students for all that they are. And the story is about the author, Patricia, who was dyslexic and no one knew. So it was an autobiography that she pretty much wrote for herself and this one teacher that saw that she felt she was stupid and called herself that. And the teacher saw that, and it was not that, and was able to address her needs. And so I think as educators and as a board that will be working with the educators and the administrators, our biggest hurdle, our biggest job is to make sure that those students, every student, feels that they can accomplish what they want to accomplish and be who they want to be. And it's a beautiful story. If you've never read it, you should go read it.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go into our closing statements. Jim, you started. You would be next to go first, but you started, so we're going to skip over you, and Tiffany's going to start. As part of your closing statement, if you could include why you think you are the best person to lead the Cornwall School District into the future, please include that if you would.
Certainly. I don't normally like to give myself accolades or praise in any way. I don't normally find it appealing in people, but since you asked, I would ask that you vote for me on May 21st, and for the budget. I have the experience. I have strategic planning. I have strategic resource allocation. I have union negotiation. I have FERPA compliance, board advisement. I have education experience. I've been teaching undergrads for 10 years. Like I said, I was a business dean. And again, more importantly, because I believe in transparency, I believe in open communication. I believe in our students, our educators, our staff. I believe in Cornwall. I've given a lot of my time to various organizations around Cornwall. I told you Girls on the Run, the Food Bank, the Youth Committee. I believe in partnering strategically. I believe in using the resources that you have at hand. And I'm just committed. I'm committed. I still have a child in the district, have some grads, as I've mentioned, and my husband and I are truly committed to Cornwall and the Cornwall School District. Thank you.
Eleanor?
So I feel that I would be a wonderful board member, and I would love for you to vote for me, and definitely vote yes for the budget. But I feel that my experience, not only as a teacher, as an accountant, but I have wealth of experience with curriculum. I also served as a union representative within our school district, so I have that experience as well with negotiation. But more importantly, I'm trustworthy, I'm transparent. What you see is what you get. If you attended any of the board meetings previously, I was there and will speak up when I feel that something is not going the way it should be going. So for sure, you can definitely trust that I will be honest, I will be as transparent as can be, and I feel that I do have the experience to serve on the Board of Education.
Thank you. Peter?
Well, I think you could see that I'm kind of just a straight shooter. I tell it like it is. I'm passionate about my beliefs and things that I think can improve the Cornwall School District for the students and the families and the teachers. If I'm elected, like Jim was saying before, there's 9 board members. You need to get everyone to communicate and work together. I feel that the job I had for 20 plus years is that's all we did is how you get along with different personalities and mesh with different people and I have skin in the game here. I have 3 kids here. None of them have graduated yet, and of course I want them to have the best possible education. And like I said, I'm retired. This would be my full-time job, and I enjoy helping people and trying to do what's the best for people. And if you voted for me, I'll bring my passion for you into the boardroom, and I will do my very best for the people here and for the students and families.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you. I'll start real briefly with a tactical answer rather than a big picture answer, because we touched on facilities a little bit tonight, but we didn't really dig into it. I've been on the facilities committee for 3 years. We have a lot of needs. Our facilities committee chairperson is not running for re-election, so if nothing else, you should vote for me just to chair that committee next year, because I deeply understand those issues, having been on that committee. We've passed a $23 million capital project. We have $3 million of $5 million in our next capital reserve saved, and we're going to be coming out with a capital project in the next couple of years, and it's vitally important. From a big picture perspective, I'm a longtime resident. I moved away, and I chose to move back here to raise my children here. Imported my wife, said, this is a great place to raise children. I had a great childhood growing up, and our kids should be afforded the same. I understand this community, and really what you see is what you get. If you're in this room or you're watching this on YouTube, go watch some old board meetings. If you have insomnia, watch some old board meetings. But if you're watching this, you've watched some of the board meetings. You've seen what I'm going to bring to the table. Trust your eyes. You're going to get common sense, level-headed leadership who has the trust of his fellow board members to continue driving this district forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So on behalf of the Cornwall PTO Trust, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank all of our candidates. Please vote in this election, which is on May 21st, and in every election. Good night.